I guess my story kind of starts out a little bit about 3 years ago. Over a 2-year span at work, things were really kind of sliding sort of out of control a little bit. And it got to a point about a year ago where things got so out of control, not to the point where it was impacting my job or what was going on there, but it was, sliding out of control where my job was kind of at risk, actually. And a good friend of mine, actually, who introduced me to Journey Church all throughout the previous year, where I would kind of come every now and then, didn't really take a hold for me. I remember the day specifically. It was February 18th, 2018, where I met Pastor Dan for the first time and, took the first course, I guess, or the first lesson of new believers. And I knew right away that was where I needed to be. It's really made things a lot easier. I feel like I've been liberated to do more, to do things, to let God lead and to do things that are honoring and praising God. I was always kind of afraid to do that before. I didn't really know how to sort of take that first step. And in the last year, just a little over a year, it's been so much, there's been so much freedom in just kind of saying yes to things that kind of come my way. After the 13 weeks, I did decide to publicly make that statement by going through and having a water baptism on July 22nd, 2018.
Feels so nice when the people sing along, singing along with the banjo.
things are possible. Snow shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Jesus, thank you, Jesus. Oh God, we thank you, Jesus. How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the and chase after us. We know that your love will come find us wherever we are, God. And we thank you for that, Jesus. We thank you for that, Jesus. God, we worship you today with thanksgiving. God, we're entering into your courts this morning with praise. God, we worship you. You are God above all, seated at the right hand of the Father. We praise you, Jesus. We praise you, Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Thanks for hanging with us today. In just a few moments, we will hear an encouraging message from our lead pastor, Kevin Taylor. If this is your first time here with us, we are so excited you decided to check us out. We would love to get to know you. If so, open up a new tab or window on one of your devices and type in jrnychurch.com/start. This gives us an opportunity to connect with you, answer any questions you might have, or help point you to the next steps in getting you connected here at Journey Church. If at any time you need prayer during the service, let us know by going to jrnychurch.com/prayer or chat with us. If something amazing has happened in your life, we want to know too. Let us know by going to that same link, jrnychurch.com/prayer, or again, connect with us right now on the chat. Parents, we have something for your kids too. So head on over to jrnykids.com for some content specifically made to help your kids grow closer to Jesus each week. Also, connect with them throughout the week on Facebook by searching JRNY Kids. If you have teenagers, Journey Youth is putting out some amazing content for them as well. Thank you for continuing to give to Journey Church. You can do that online, jrnychurch.com/give.
Welcome to the first weekend back after Easter. It's super great to have you back with us. If it was your first time with us at Journey last weekend, welcome back. Or if it was your first time in a long time with us, it's great to have you back as well. We're looking forward to the time and hopefully the near future when we can gather together in person. And so if you are close by to one of our campuses, let me just tell you where those are. There's a campus just south of the Wisconsin-Illinois border in Beach Park, Illinois. There's a campus in Burlington, Wisconsin, and then one in Kenosha, Wisconsin. If you happen to live in Eastern Europe, there's a campus in Vilnius, Lithuania. We would just love to have you show up at one of those campuses once we are able to reopen our doors in a larger sense. So we would just love to see you and greet you and see you face to face. Our mission statement at Journey Church is making it easy to find and experience God. And we trust that we're doing that, especially during this time when we're all kind of separated a bit, by offering so many things on our website at jrnychurch.com or on various platforms like Facebook or Instagram, doing some live things there. Through YouTube, you can search JRNY Church or JRNY Kids or JRNY Youth. Lots of stuff, morning prayer times, Wednesday devotional times, and just some other fun times just during the week that we have provided. So check us out in one of those various platforms. We'd love to see you in any or all those places. We're in the middle of a series right now called Burning Questions, and we're looking at questions that Jesus himself asked. And you have to kind of ask or say to yourself, if Jesus is asking questions, they just must be important, because I'm figuring that Jesus knows all the answers to all of his own questions. So if Jesus is asking, I think we should sit up and take notice of what the questions are. A couple weeks ago, we asked, the question was, Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" And he asked it of his disciples. The answer that his disciples gave was, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." When Jesus is hanging on the cross, he's suspended there being crucified, a thief on his left and a thief on his right. And in that moment, as people down below are shouting at him and spitting on him, and they're gambling for his clothes, and a spear is being thrust into his side, and all of that agony and humiliation and excruciation, Jesus says to his Father, "Father, would you forgive them? They don't really even know what they're doing." And it's a couple of the questions that Jesus is asking throughout Scripture. And we're going to look at another one of the questions that Jesus asked today. But before we do, let's just find out how smart you are. I'm going to ask just a few questions, 3 or 4 questions, and I want you to see if you can figure out the answers with me before we move forward. Here's the first question. Ready? Mrs. Smith's bungalow is decorated entirely in pink. The carpet is pink, the ceiling is pink, Even the lampshades are pink. What color are her stairs? Okay, the answer to that is that she lives in a bungalow. Remember I said she lives in a bungalow? So there's no stairs in the bungalow. So that was the first question. See how you did. Here's question number 2. Imagine you're driving a bus. You drive to bus stop T, where 4 people get on. You then arrive at bus stop O, where 2 people get off. Finally, you reach bus stop M, where everybody gets off. What's the name of the bus driver? Okay, the answer is whatever your name is, because remember I said at the beginning that you're driving the bus, okay? So how are we doing so far? Feeling good about yourself? Everybody feeling good about who you are? Here's the third question. Imagine that you've been kidnapped. Your only way of escape is through one of 3 doors. Door 1 leads to a fiery inferno. Door 2 leads to 30 assassins with loaded guns. Door 3 is full of hungry lions who have not eaten for 3 months. Which room is the safest way out? The answer is room 3, because the lions will have starved to death if they have not eaten for 3 months. Okay, some of you are getting mad at me right now. Okay, here's the fourth and last question. This is it. Which is heavier, a ton of pure gold or a ton of feathers? The answer is that both of them are the same because they both weigh 1 ton. So I gave you that question out of mercy for your ego. Okay, so those are good. Questions are good, but sometimes questions can be maddening, like maybe some of those were. But we're in a series on questions. But these are not trick questions like the ones that I just gave you. These are life-changing questions that Jesus is asking of you and of me. And today's question comes at the conclusion of a day that was really remarkable. A day that began with thousands of people gathered in the middle of nowhere. They have followed Jesus out to be where he is, and he had gone out to get away from them, honestly, to spend some time with his Father in order to rest and to pray and to be with his Father. But thousands of people began to search for him, and they ended up finding him in this spot where Jesus was, and they listened to him teach for hours. They listened to him teach, and as the sun begins to set, those who were closest to Jesus and his friends advised him that he needs to wrap it up. He needs to let the people go home because it's getting dark and they're going to need to eat something. And my wife occasionally does that on weekends when maybe I've just spent a little bit too long on the message and I don't realize that I've really gone longer than I should because, who doesn't love the sound of their own voice, right? So, and I might look at her, glance at her, and she'll give me that look back, the look that really only a husband and wife share. And it's communicated without any words. It's time to land the plane, buddy. So you kind of get that. So Jesus' disciples, they're friends with him, and so they give him kind of a look. It's a look that tells him that everybody really needs to start heading home at this point to get something to eat because there's nothing for them to eat that far out there where they were. And Jesus turns to his disciples, and he says to them, "You feed them." And I mean, they're kind of like, we don't have anything to feed them with, and the most that we are able to gather are a few loaves of bread and just a couple of fish. I mean, that's not even enough for a grown man to be hungry or to be fed. There are thousands of people here, and Jesus says, "Bring me the food. I'll pray over it." You can almost hear them thinking, man, that better be like one amazing prayer right there. So they bring him the food, and he does pray over it. And as they begin to distribute the food, they realize that it was indeed one amazing prayer. Because 5,000 people are being fed with just a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. Every time they reach their hand into the basket in order to pull more out, there is more to be pulled out. It's like the food couldn't run out. It was a miracle. That was the first part of the day. Then came the second part of the day, and in the second part of the day is a moment unlike anything they have ever experienced. With it comes a question that is life-changing for all of us. Jesus sends everybody home, and then he tells his disciples to go get in the boat and launch out into the water. He says, I'm gonna stick around here because this is what I came to do out here. I came to get away from people. I came to spend time with my Father in order to pray and to rest and refuel. So you go and I'll catch up with you later. Here's what happened. It's in Matthew chapter 14. It says, after sending them home, Jesus went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble, far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. Let's just stop there for a moment and talk about the storm, because storms are really the gut check of every relationship, are they not? A storm that might erupt between a parent or a child, a storm that might fuel or refuel between a husband and a wife, a storm that might break out between friends or between business partners or teammates, that is the gut check of trust, which means that storms are also gut checks in our relationships with God, because when times are good, the God thing is a breeze. I mean, then the sky turns dark and the winds pick up and the waves build, and suddenly you are not so sure anymore. You aren't really sure that God can be trusted. You aren't really that sure that He is even good. And I'll just tell you right now, if you follow Jesus somewhere that you believe He's telling you to go, and if it seems that going there with Him and doing that with Him might lead you into a storm, you're going to doubt that that's the right path, because you are into storm avoidance mode. I mean, most of us are. In fact, your whole idea of God is storm avoidance. If we think that for God to be trustworthy, that there shouldn't be any storms, there should never be a storm. That's really part of pop culture today, that the whole purpose of God is the good life, that the whole purpose of God is getting more of what you have and more of what you really want. Sailing should always be smooth. The water should always be calm. God should always provide a storm-free life. In fact, why follow God at all if He isn't going to keep the storms away? I mean, isn't that His job? What's the point of having Him around at all if He's not going to keep the storms away? Isn't the point of following God is that we would have a storm-free life? So you want a shocker? You won't find any of that in the Bible. In fact, the Gospel of John, it says that understand that in this world, you will have trouble. Jesus said that. Now, He follows it up by saying, hey, don't be afraid because I've overcome the world. But He also says in that first part, you are going to have trouble. If anything, Jesus in the Bible says that you should expect a storm. The real issue is whether you believe God can be trusted with the storm. That's the issue. The issue is whether you will trust Him in the middle of the storm. I want you to see what happens next in Matthew. It says, about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. When the disciples saw Him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." But Jesus spoke to them at once. Don't be afraid. Again, the most common thing that He says as a form of a command, don't be afraid, take courage. I am here. So many of you have probably heard about this occasion when Jesus walks on water. What you may not have known is that this is the very same day when earlier He fed 5,000 people with a couple of fish and some loaves of bread. What I mean is it's like in the same 24-hour period that this happens. It was a whole day where the entire point of the day was Jesus communicating, you can trust me. You can follow where I lead. It's going to be okay. I'm going to work it out. You can trust me. And in this account on the water, did you notice when it was that Jesus showed up? Let's read it one more time. Night fell. The disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them. So it gets dark when? In the winter, 5 o'clock. In the summer, more like 9 o'clock. Either way, 3 o'clock in the morning, that's late, whenever it is in the year. Have you ever felt that God was just a bit late when it comes to your storm? When you might say, God, I am single, and I've been single for a long time now, and I've asked you, where's the guy? Where's the God? Where's the girl? God, you're late. You have, and your spouse have been wanting a child, and you have prayed, God, would you give us a child? We really want a child. It's a great request. And you see all the other annoying couples around you who are easily getting pregnant, and you say, God, you are late. You are looking for a job and you've said, God, I've applied for everything that I know how to apply for. I don't know how to do this any better. Where's the job? God, you're late. You fill in the blank about what your storm is and where you feel God has run late. And the longer it is before he comes, the more your relationship with him takes a hit, doesn't it? So because even if you know that trusting God means trusting him in the storm, you probably still think, yeah, but man, he should have come earlier. I mean, he should not have taken this long to come through. None of this 3 a.m. stuff. I mean, 6 p.m. at the latest. I mean, maybe 7. But this 1, 2, 3 in the morning, yeah, forget about that. That is way late. And that's when doubt begins to creep in and makes you wonder whether God really is who he says he is, wondering if he really does care. Wonder even if he has the ability to intervene and do what he says. Wondering if you can really believe in him or if really I need to start looking somewhere else. But not only are we called to trust God with the storm, we are called to trust his timing during the storm. Trust him through the waiting. If you have been to the circus, you've seen the trapeze artists that are swinging from swing to swing or from cable to cable, and I'm told that there is a special relationship when there's 2 trapeze artists, and there's a special relationship between the flyer and the catcher. Because as the flyer flies out on his trapeze, at some point, you've seen it, he lets go. And then in midair, he turns around to face the catcher. He arcs out into the air, and for that one moment, it's just too soon. The catcher's not there yet. He's waiting for the catcher. In that moment, the flyer, with absolute trust, has to just wait. The catcher's going to catch him, but the flyer has to wait. It is his job to wait. It isn't his job to flail around, and in fact, if he flails around in anxiety, it's very likely something very bad will happen to him. His job is to be still. His job is to wait. It's the waiting that's the hardest part of all. I mean, and it is for us too, isn't it? It's the hardest part. You have a storm, God feels late. So you're waiting. The waiting is all about trust. Because if you choose to trust in, and if you choose to trust through the waiting, then you are exercising the trust muscle. I mean, this is so important to understand. If the nature of our relationship with God is built on trust, if we say that we trust him as our God, if we say that we trust him as our leader, if we say that we trust him as our father, we trust him as our guide, we trust him as our deliverer, we trust him as our fortress, we trust him as our tower, if that's the heart of the relationship that we have with God, but we never exercise the trust muscle, then that just becomes what? That just becomes some philosophy that we spout off about. That just becomes like some intellectual exercise. But it isn't anything real. It isn't anything vibrant. It isn't anything life-giving. And it certainly isn't anything relational. If you and I never have to trust, or if we never have to stretch in order to trust, then the muscle never grows. It never develops. It never gets stronger. If you trust in God only when everything around you is going great and never when you have to choose trust, then your trust muscle never gets tested. Here's what Paul says about this in the book of Romans. He says, waiting does not diminish us any more than waiting diminishes a pregnant mother. We are enlarged in the waiting. We, of course, don't see what is enlarging us, but the longer we wait, the larger we become. The bigger our faith muscle grows, the bigger our relationship with God gets. But there's more. Let's read it from Matthew again. Go back there with me. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified, and in their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." They didn't even recognize Jesus, and here's why. It wasn't because Jesus was disguised that they didn't recognize him. It wasn't even because it was dark that they didn't recognize him. It was because they didn't think he could actually be doing what it was he was doing. They didn't think he could actually be doing it where he was doing it. In the middle of a huge storm, they didn't see him as the Lord of the storm. So they missed him. They didn't recognize him. They missed his presence. They missed his power. They missed the moment. They missed his hand reaching out to him. They missed his coming. But let's not blast the disciples, because I see that happening in my own life, and maybe you do too. Times when I said, God, show me. God, make it clear to me. Talk to me. And God was. God was doing it. I just didn't see it. Because I wasn't open to how he was doing it. I wasn't open to the way that he was doing it. I wasn't open that he could possibly be giving that answer, doing it that way, on that timeline. God, you couldn't do it that way, and so I missed him. Well, keep reading with me. It says, Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat, walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. And Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. And then the disciples worshiped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. There's our burning question from Jesus. Why did you doubt me? Why didn't you trust me? Let's soak in that just a bit before we move past it. Let's get the full weight of that question for our lives. What's your boat? Because you have a boat, and you're in it right now, probably, maybe. What is it that you are clinging to, and what is it that you are sitting in, and what is it that you're refusing to let go of because you think that thing is safer than Jesus, who's standing out there on top of the waves? John Ortberg has a book with the title that says, if you want to walk on water, you have to get out of the boat. And I said something to someone at our church not that long ago who would come to me, a person who would come to me just for some counsel, and she actually reminded me of this just a couple of weeks ago. I had forgotten it, but she sent me a note, and she was reminding me of what God was doing in her life, and it was just all really good. And she said, PK, you had told me in that moment, she said, whatever you do, stay in the boat. And she said, I've always heard people say, whatever you do, get out of the boat. You told me, you keep staying in the boat, keep rowing, whatever you do, don't get out of the boat. And here's the thing. If Jesus is in your boat, don't get out. Stay there. Don't go anywhere else. You keep rowing. If Jesus is in your boat, but if you're in the boat and Jesus is out there, for heaven's sake, don't stay in the boat. Get out of the boat and get where Jesus is. So, what's your boat? What's the thing that you think is better than the storm? What is it you think is better than the water, safer than the storm, even with Jesus standing right there on top of the winds and the waves calling you to come, reaching out with his hand and saying, come on. What is it that gives you more safety, more security, more promise, more protection than God? Whatever it is, that's your boat. Whatever it is you draw from more than God, whatever it is that you think is more safe, more secure, more protective than doing what God has told you to do, what God has called you to do, that's your boat. So name it. You have a boat. I have a boat. You're in it. I'm in it. You need to get out. Why? Because it is not where Jesus is. He's out there. Get out of the boat, man. Rush to Jesus. Get where Jesus is. He's out there with his hands extended going, come on, I'm right here. I got you. It's going to be okay. let me suggest something to you that's important. And to do this, I'm going to put my pastor's hat on. I do this every now and then, just when I want to say something that's like a little bit extra pointed. I'm going to say some things that maybe I need you to have a little extra measure of grace for. So I just put the pastor's hat on, and maybe it's a little bit of large group counseling right here, just from your pastor, okay? There's going to come a time when in between you and the life with Jesus that you want, there will be a lot of water. There will be a lot of waves. There will be a lot of wind between you and the thing that Jesus wants you to do. And Jesus will be out there, and he'll be saying, trust me. I have this. Do the thing that I asked you to do. It's going to be okay. I know that you think that you're taking a giant risk right now, but this is where I am. You come to me. Leave the boat behind and come on out to me. And you're going to be standing there in that moment. You're going to be looking at him, and you're going to be looking at the waves. Jesus, waves. Jesus, waves. Jesus, waves. Jesus, waves. And you're going to have to decide. And it isn't just about getting out of the boat. It's about going and doing where Jesus is leading. It's about who you're going to trust, not just in the moment, but for your whole journey. Hang with me right here, because this is so important. It is not just about getting out of your boat of security. It is about entering the chaos of the storm. It's about putting yourself exactly in the center of where Jesus is. It's about trusting Jesus with whatever happens next, because that's where he is. He's in the storm. He's seeing you through the storm. He's seeing you to the end of the storm, no matter where the storm might lead. Jesus is out there going, come. This is where I am. This is where you need to be. And there are some of you who are looking at Jesus today, and you're just trying to make a decision about whether you can reliably follow him or not, whether you're going to commit your whole life to him, whether he can be trusted. And that's fair, because it's your life. And if you think, if I went all in with Jesus, if I did that, I just think that would get messy. I just think if I gave my life to Jesus, it would kind of get awkward. I'm pretty sure that there would be some things that would be really uncomfortable for me. And if that's what you sense, can I just say to you that you're starting to get it? You really are. Because some of that is exactly what Jesus would call you to do, because when you come to Christ, a lot has to change. A lot had to change for me when I decided to give my life to Christ, but it was all good. But I had to look my storm in the eye and still choose Jesus. And so do you. So do you. There's just one bit more I want you to see from this passage before we're done, and it's about Peter. I like Peter. Peter's like a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. He has guts. I like him. He has all kinds of courage. He has this bravado. He has a backbone. He doesn't just go with whatever the crowd's doing. And you might say, yeah, but he fell in, right? He went in the water, and then he started going down. Yeah, but he got out. He got out of the boat. He did more than the other 11 who were still sitting in the boat shaking with fear and terror. Even if it was only a few steps, he got out, walking toward Jesus. Let me just remind you that other than Jesus, Peter is the only person in all of history that can say, I walked on the water. He's the only one. For those few moments, he kept his eyes on Jesus, and he walked. It wasn't just his eyes. It was like all of him. It was his entire orientation. It was trust. He made it all about Jesus, not about the storm for a few seconds. What wind? What waves? Where's the storm? Where is it? there's Jesus walking toward him. And when he kept his eyes on Jesus, Peter walked right on top of the water toward Jesus. He lived above his life circumstances. He lived above them. Then he looked away, took his eyes off Jesus, put his eyes back on the storm. And when he did that, Jesus wasn't everything anymore. The storm was, which is the heart of the life-changing, burning question. Why did you doubt me? Why didn't you trust me? Don't you remember what happened earlier today? You saw me feed 5,000 people with just a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. You've walked with me. You've seen me do all kinds of miracles. I raised dead people from the grave. You know who I am. I walked out onto you on the waves. Why couldn't you just come out? Why can't you just come out and meet me? My hands are open to you. Just come. I got you. Why did you doubt instead of mistrust and fear? And then Jesus climbs into the boat. And when he does, it says that instantly the storm ceased. And that's when it just hit home. God's in the boat now. God was actually out there. The one in the water. That was God too. All 12 of us could have gotten out of the boat, walked to Jesus. All 12 of us could have done it, the dozen of us. We could have got out of our boat, walked toward Jesus on the water without a care. But we didn't. All 12 of us could have trusted. But we gave in to doubt for no reason. All 12 of us had every reason to trust, no reason to fear, and yet we gave in to doubt. What would you do right now if you knew that you had no reason to doubt, no reason to fear? What has God clearly called you to, but you are not doing it because you have given in to fear? Still in the boat. What would it look like if all of your uncertainty was gone? What would it look like, and what would you do if you had no doubts and no lack of trust and no fear, and you just raced out to Jesus? What would it look like if you did what he was asking you to do? What is it that you know that God has asked you to do? But because of the chaos of the storm, all because of some boat you're in, until days become weeks, and weeks become months, and months become years, and years become decades, and one day you're looking back on a life of bold prayers that you never ever prayed, exhilarating experiences that you never ever took, sacrificial gifts that you never ever offered. And then you realize there was something bigger that God was calling you to do, but you never got out of the boat. So live with the question. Why do you doubt me? Why don't you just trust me? It is a life-changing, burning question for sure. But it's a life-changing, burning question that it's time for you to answer. And so this is for so many people in your own rooms today. Some of you who just need to admit that there is sin in your life and believe on the one who can remove the sin, and then confess that to him and commit your life to him and say, Jesus, I'm ready to follow you. There are some of you, that's you. That's your boat. Jesus saying, come to me. I have you. I have your life. That's something amazing for you. But you admit you're a sinner, believe in Jesus, confess it and commit to him, do a 180 and walk his direction. And then there are others in your rooms that you just need to trust Jesus with something that he's calling you to do. Somewhere he's calling you to be, something he's calling you to give, somebody he's calling you to just reach out to. But you're kind of stuck in your own boat of self-safety and self-security, and Jesus is saying, come on, come out to me. Get out of the boat. I've got you. So I'm going to invite you, all of you, to pray with me today. God, we come to you for those in the room who haven't given their lives to you. God, we admit that we are sinners. Would you just say that to Jesus? I admit that I'm a sinner. That we believe that you're the answer. Would you just say that as well? I believe, Jesus, that you're the answer. And I would confess my sins to you. Say, I confess my sins to you, Lord. And then I would just make a commitment to turn and do a 180 and follow you. Would you say, Lord, I commit to following you today? And Lord, I thank you that what you've done is so easy. You've made it so easy for us. And so I thank you that you've walked into people's lives today who've said, I just want to follow you, Lord Jesus. I just want to follow you. And God, for many of the rest of us, we're the boat we're sitting that we know it. It's springing leaks. And there you are in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the storm, and you're just going, can you just come out to me? Because I have the safety you desire. I have the security that you're looking for. I have the peace that eludes you. It's here. I have it. Just come to me. God, would you help us to get out of whatever boat we're in that we think is some kind of substitute for you. In some way, it's even greater than you. And help us walk out on the waves, through the wind, crashing around us. Help us to take your hand today. If it's a relationship, if it's a situation, if it's a circumstance, if it's an employment, if it's a provision, if it's a health issue, God, we get out of our boat, reach out for you, because we know that you love us. And then, God, would you help us to keep our eyes on you? Would you help us to trust you in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the winds raging all around us? Would you help us to keep our eyes on you, not on the storm? We're going to trust you, not just through this season. We're going to trust you beyond this season. We're going to trust you with our lives, with our families, with our futures. We love you. We thank you for who you are. We thank you that you are our leader, our guide, the one we follow, that you are the tower, that you are a shelter in the time of storm. We bless you and praise you. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. If you committed your life to Christ today, you admitted you're a sinner, believe in Christ, you confessed it and committed your life to him, I'd just love you to text JRNY to 94,000. We have some next steps for you. Best decision ever that you've made. Thanks for being with us today. Let's worship before we're done.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. Still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. Still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me. No, you won't. Seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in
Hey, Journey Church. If you made the decision to follow Jesus for the first time, we are thrilled to be able to walk with you through the next steps. We have an online course called Following Jesus. This course will help you walk through your new relationship with Jesus. It's completely free, and you can follow at your own pace. It also comes with a free digital book called Following Jesus. To sign up, just text JRNY to 94000 and a link will be sent to you. Once again, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you all this week on social media and right back here next weekend.